Ben Dietz. I'm
I'm
Jeff
Ben Dietz.
Carvalho.
You're
Yes, you're
Jeff
Ben Dietz.
Carvalho.
Can I just tell you something? The number of and I know we do live in a very connected world, but the number of people that I meet that I can eventually track back to also knowing you is pretty impressive. But I bet you that's probably true in general.
I mean, I say to people all the time, the world gets constantly smaller.
It
It's
does.
you know,
I just
which is
funny
kind of an amazing thing to think about.
funny enough, somebody gave me a new record they're working on, and when I looked at the studio it was done in a friend of mine's studio down here in
Oh, how about
Miami.
that?
Yeah,
What was the
which was
record?
um God, I can't think of the freaking
Say
name
what
now.
you can. Tell we don't want to give away any trade secrets, but who is
Uh
Benny Blanco in the studio with?
no, it's not Benny Blanc. Is he live out here? Is he down in
No,
Miami?
no, he's out in L.A.
It's a forthcoming record. I'll leave it there. But more importantly, it was just cool to see, you know, somebody here. But that's dope. Otherwise, Ben, how's your week been?
Yeah, it's been fine. Been fine. Lots going on. I had a really fun and interesting catch up with my buddy uh, Jamie Bernstein, who does More or Less magazine. You know More or Less?
Okay, I don't. Pull
Let
it
me
up.
show you.
We
So
got it with you.
More or
Great.
Less magazine started in 2018. It is a fashion magazine. Jamie was she was at British Vogue for a long time. Although I know her from New York from before then. But
Oh, super nice. Is that
so for those who aren't seeing this, I'm holding up this oversized print magazine.
is that
This
Ramazel
particular
in the front?
cover, yeah, Ramelzi, or Ramelzi, or however, I've
I
never really
I
understood how to
absolutely
pronounce.
butchered it, by the way. I'm the guy that calls Stussy Stussy.
It's either, well, don't do that, Jesus Christ, Jeff. It's either Ramelzi or Ramelzi. Or potentially both. But anyway, this is so it's oversized, super thick, fashion magazine, and the focus that they lean into is sustainability in fashion. Like the
Oh,
idea of
interesting.
more or less is, you know, how do we engage all of our vanities and vices with the things that we, wear,
It's
collect, own, and buy, while at the same time being conscious of what the effects of the making and consumption of those things are on the planet. But
totally
anyway,
the
so just really quickly, Jamie has been doing it since 2018, but she's the creative director at Tory Burch, and so she
who by the way is
and I
killing
were,
it.
yeah, they really are. And she and I were talking yesterday about like what would be potential ways to, grow the more or less thing without having it be a thing that she does full time, because
Do you think
she's got
sometimes
a good
that
full time thing.
overthinking this kind of thing will lead to it becoming something else?
Well, maybe. I mean, part of the discussion that we had yesterday was just around the idea of sustainability as a messaging point, a talking point of, and a thing, no pun intended, in or out of vogue, right? Like it, it and it's interesting given, you know, the Trump's world and that whole universe. Like, how much do we care about, or how much do we actively not care about things like sustainability, DEI, so on and so forth, in the grand scheme of things?
I'm actually
Eh,
surprised that the backlash has not just been louder. Did we literally just
to
decide,
what?
wow, that was a lot of work? I mean, the DEI thing is
Well,
massive,
that's, oh yeah. I mean, okay. So right. So the DEI thing is a stalking horse for this, and we can just set that
right?
aside for a second. But what I was saying to Jamie yesterday was that I think, to my mind, the reason that sustainability is, um, continues to be a crucial topic, whether you want to call it sustainability with a capital S or not, is like, when it's done right, it's a business benefit, not just in terms of preventing waste and preventing,
Hmm.
abuse and pollution and so on and so forth, but because it forces you to think smarter about the way you produce, and that leads to marginal gains and better business efficiency.
Right.
So it's like, think of it, do it
That
for that
that's
reason,
what should
not,
happen.
that's exactly right. Do it for that reason, not because, you get a gold sticker, or because you win the
It's not a
middle
table
school debate.
stake, right? It's not a table stake the way that, um, quite frankly, generations after ours are, and certainly you and I and many of our generation. But the unfortunate thing is that there are no signals that are showing that this is now a priority under the Trump world. And again,
Well,
I go back to that
just
McKinsey report. It's just showing it. I'm just trying to give both sides here. It's
yeah, yeah,
showing that the executives in brands are deprioritizing it, even though the consumers are not. And
that's what
that's
I
what's
mean.
freaky. That's what's fucking freaky.
That's what I mean. It's the opposite. It's moving in the opposite direction. The it is being deprioritized because it is not a popular talking point or a
Oh my
good
God, the amount of
valuable
money.
messaging point, instead of being thought of as like, well, forget that for a second, but this is a business benefit, it's an efficiency,
Totally. The only guys that are still
let's
doing that,
design for it that way.
I think of like Free People, quite frankly. I think of
Interesting, really?
Patagonia. Like there's
Yeah, Patagonia.
Free People's 100% still and I could be wrong. Maybe I have the name of the brand wrong, but I think it's Free People. They're still pretty much about keeping organic cottons within their product line.
Okay.
I think
I
they're
thought
and
Free
again,
People was Urban Outfitters
Free People.
derivative, but
Am I
I
fucking it
could be
up?
wrong about
Hold
that.
on a second. Oh
Yeah, we're
yeah,
gonna
I
do a
bet you
little
I am.
research here.
Women's wear brand made in USA organic cotton. And Buck Mason does it too. Okay. But that's not who I'm thinking of. Oh man, I really hope it's not Free People.
Yeah, no, Free People is owned by Urban Outfitters, which is not to say that they don't do it that way, but it's
I'm
yeah, it's an Urban Outfitters derivative.
I apologize, guys. That's not the
I
brand I'm
know this
thinking
because
of.
I went to college in Philadelphia, and Urban Outfitters started there, is based there, so on and so forth. I
Right.
like Urban Outfitters, irrespective of this. Anyway, the one thing, speaking of Patagonia, that I thought was interesting, Jeff, did you see that Patagonia released its own font this week?
Oh, I didn't. Fill me in on
Yeah,
that. I missed that one.
yeah. So a friend of the show, Michael Leone, who is a creative director out there at Patagonia. I presume he's probably in Ventura. I know Michael did he's an artist, and he did stuff with The Quiet Life, Andy Jenkins and those guys, and he contributed to Archetype
Huh.
magazine back in the day. But anyway, Michael, I have a here, hold on, I'm gonna just stand up and show you this. Oh, I have a Michael Leone skull here on my
Oh, that's
desk.
dope. I don't have
Yeah,
any
it's
skulls.
cool,
I only have skulls
right?
on my walls, like this piece right here.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, Michael posted on LinkedIn that Patagonia had released its first font. It's called
Mm-hmm.
Ridgeway, and it's not a thing that many people are probably aware of, but lots of these brands, particularly ones that operate in fashion style, have in-house fonts that they've developed. The one that comes immediately to me is Adi House, which is the in-house font that Adidas made. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when they made it, but probably in the early 2000s, around the launch of Adidas Originals.
Yeah, they're not the
Shout
only
out
ones. I mean, a lot of
shout
newspapers
out
do
to
it
Ben
too.
Pruce, friend of the show, Ben you for
New
the
York
great
Times
work at that
uses
time.
what's known as Cheltenham Roman or Cheltenham Roman.
They don't use
Across,
Times New Roman.
they don't. I think they changed it probably about 4 years ago.
Oh wow.
It's a custom type that was made
Oh,
for
okay.
them. Um, it's and the great thing about it, I love it. I mean, it's right up my alley. It shows you the commitment to design, or at least to um, trying to hold a spec, you know.
Right.
And I kind of like that. I don't know.
Speaking of, by the way, not to get too far down the font path, because as this next story I'm going to tell you illustrates, you can. So this week on Monday, Nick Catchdubs, Nick Barrett,
Shout out.
yeah, Fool's Gold Record founder, he publishes a newsletter called Catch Dini that is really fun, and it's just like little rabbit holes that he goes down. But he found an article in a publication called Ars Luna, ARESLUNA, about the history of the Gorton, GORTON font, which was the font that was used on typewriter keys and in many kinds of industrial signage in like the
I'm
mid-century
looking right
modern
at it.
period.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it's a 6,000 word piece with
What?
600 photos
What?
of the Gorton thing. And I was talking to my my guest on Sick Talks this week was this guy Danny Giacopelli, who does a newsletter called For Starters, which is about small business. He just launched it. And he was just like, we were just, sort of marveling at this crazy, crazy depth that you can go to.
What's Nick's newsletter again? Is it CH?
It's called Catch Dini. So Nick Catch Dubs, and so Catch Dini is a nickname for that, and it's CATCHDINI.
Yeah. All right, I found him.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, that's the prose of 6,000 words on something as which many would
Arcane. Arcane, yeah, exactly.
Arcane is, yeah, I think actually that's the best word, is interesting. But I'm right up there with him. I don't want to give away a story that I'm working on, but it's actually very much about typefaces, design, and radio, which I think will be really cool. I don't want to give away too much till I finish it.
Who are you working on the story for?
I don't know. I'm trying to. I'm getting back in the flow, Ben. If you know what I mean.
I got it. Yeah. It's the same. It's been the same with me. It's like,
I have a question for you though. How is Nick putting those 6,000 images? Because quite frankly.
Oh no. To be clear, Nick didn't write that story. Nick found it.
He didn't. He found it.
Yeah. He found it. I found it in his newsletter. I put it in my newsletter. Danny saw it in my newsletter, work in progress, and when we talked about it. So no, it is not Nick's story, but
I want to be.
It is a very Nick coded story.
I love that. In fact, if I was to give myself one piece of advice since COVID, it would have been that for all of the amazing things that I wrap myself around, that I really didn't spend enough time writing about them. And just as an example,
sure.
As you know, like I'm obsessed with old military stampers, and that story on Gorton just reminded me that I have these 3 amazing, military grade sign makers that really nobody knows about. So I think that actually I know I'm flowing on something completely different. It feels like we're in a fantastic place to start just going long on the most archaic or mundane things possible, because some of that stuff's amazing.
Well, okay, so I mean, obviously it's amazing. Yeah, I guess. Sorry, I got caught up in trying to make a joke.
What it is?
I thought you were going to say the thing I learned about not being in COVID is masks don't work. But
no, it's that joking. I wasted a little too much time during COVID. I think I got too much in the COVID funk, and I wish I hadn't. But I'm coming out strong, Ben. I got a bunch of great things that I'm going to talk about this year. I do want to, one thing that Ben, I do want to talk about is, living in Miami. You got a lot of time on your hands because you don't necessarily have to go to all the meetings as you do in New York. So occasionally I make a pit stop in one of my favorite places to see what you'll find. A place that I've pulled Tom Brown out of. I pulled Stone Island.
Oh yeah, sure.
But I think this one you'll appreciate more. So,
oh boy, here we go.
So I don't know if you know the artist Dino Martins.
I don't know if I do actually.
So I don't know how the fuck I found this. At first, I thought it was probably likely a duplicate. It's not. Look at this gorgeous thing.
That's nice. I don't know Dino Martins. That's cool though.
So
guys, for those who are not watching, Jeff is showing up. He's showing a blown glass urn.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a vase. It uses, I think, a Murano swirl, I think is the name of it, which is where colored glass is made to look like, I don't know, lines or webbing throughout. It's gorgeous. Again, like just as a reminder, guys, like look around. I paid $20 for this thing, and it's probably worth about $400. So
wow.
you just never know what you're gonna find. So this is my pride and joy of the week. Something I'm adding to my home. And then one other thing I want to talk about too. For those out there that are running around and always want to buy a jazz record or jazz label, you can never go wrong by finding the Verve label. And I'm showing that on camera. And this is a great record I picked up called Lionel Hampton from '58. Super laid back. And I think I paid $0.25 for this, and it's just a fantastic record.
I mean, that's worth, the music on it could be dog shit, and it would be worth the cover. Like the cover's
incredible, right?
Yeah, it's really good. So yeah, guys, this is Lionel Hampton '58. So Hampton was the vibraphonist. This is a Verve record. The design is minimal, um, but just has this amazing pop of color with what looks like it could be a vibraphone hammer or whatever they call
Yeah,
vibraphone
shout out to
mallets.
Verve Records. I mean, I bet you there is a Verve book showing all of
Oh, there
their
must be. There must be.
covers, but
There must be.
fantastic label. Ben, what else is going on in the world around you?
Well, so I was late to the recording this morning because I was not paying attention, and I went out to get my my Saturday indulgence, which is the FT weekend in
Okay.
print, including this week's HTSI magazine. It's the menswear special, and in it was a story that I like a lot. My favorite story of one of my favorite stories of the week. Every week, HTSI, which is the acronym now not used for How to Spend It, which used to be the name of the magazine, and they've changed it to HTSI under the editorship of Joe Ellison a few years ago. Every issue there's a column called The Aesthete, and it's about a person who is aesthetically minded. And this week's is Mel Ottenberg.
Oh, no way.
Mel Ottenberg, the editor of The Stylist for Rihanna and others, and the editor of Interview Magazine. He's done a great job with Interview over the last few years. But the thing that I love especially about this, Mel talks about being addicted to ice cream and the Andy Warhol Diaries and how he's listening to the Nymphet alumni podcasts. So there's a
What's
bunch of
that?
little obscure
Nymphet.
yeah, Nymphet alumni is like these three girls from the Lower East Side who are very involved in what they call what young people call the discourse. Um, I find it hard to listen to, frankly,
Okay.
because I don't know. I just can't listen to them yammer on. But Mel apparently likes it, and God bless him for shouting it out in the Financial Times. Like, not a shout out they would have received otherwise. But the my favorite part of this is a list of gurus, and he says, I'm going to read this. My personal gurus are my hairstylist Yosuke at Hairpea, my trainer Travis Hawkins, my masseur named Richard DeVito, and he's incredible. I don't go to him for relaxing massages. I go to him for exorcisms, and he will perform them. My dermatologist is Dr. Francesca Fusco. My acupuncturist is Richard Barron. My nutritionist, if I was ever going to go to one, is Dr. Passler. But then the most important one is Sean Joswick, my jeans guru.
Your jeans grew. Oh, Sean, your boy.
I wouldn't exist as Mel Ottenberg without Sean. And
Wow. Shout
so
out.
yeah. So Sean, friend of the show, those who listen have heard his name before, but a dear old friend of mine who lives here in Greenpoint and has his own denim range, which is very bespoke, like literally one piece of time handmade by in his studio in Greenpoint. But then also he does a lot of the repairs for some of the high end denim shops. And
Yep.
I'm wearing a pair of jeans that, well, actually, these jeans have not been repaired by Sean, but no, that's not true. They have been. I'm wearing a pair of jeans that has been repaired by Sean right now.
It's
So I was just stoked to see that Joswick and the FT again.
it's wait. You said again. It's happened before.
Yeah, there was a story that like Nick Folks or somebody like that did a few months ago about I think about high-end denim brands. It was either about high-end denim brands or it was about like one-man ateliers or, that sort of thing.
That I
So
love. That's the kind of story I'm here for.
yeah. So it was, if it was about high-end denim brands, then I'm not sure what other brands would have been included in it. If it was about one-man ateliers, then you're looking at like a Still by Hand or not Still by Hand, slow studio. What's the name of that?
Slow
Anyway,
Studios.
no,
Slowware.
no,
But they're
not
Italian.
Slowware. No, that's definitely not Slowware. That's a big brand.
One
All right.
of my
Anyway, this is a
one of my
bad story
favorites
on my
just
part.
moved.
Sorry, guys. Bad story.
I mean, listen. Both of us have had a little bit of a tough story this Saturday morning, 9:00. We've both been out late. Listen, my favorite guy named Jack Clausen, who's also a one-man
Oh yeah,
atelier
you've talked
in
about
New
him
York.
before.
He, I just sent him a pair of jeans, and luckily he called me before I mailed them because he has moved to Virginia. So yeah, there's one less atelier in New York City. But that was my favorite thing about going to Jack's place. He lived in Bed-Stuy, and in a typical brownstone, and just like in the middle of Bed-Stuy to find a guy's basement just full of old machinery. I don't know. To me, that's dope.
I
Um,
mean,
who does it? I mean, I guess who doesn't like it? I don't know. Maybe the people that buy Zara, but whatever.
yeah, I mean,
We'll say it. We'll say it, Ben. Listen, if you're paying $5 for a pair of new jeans, somebody is likely dying on the way that those genes getting to you. You know, it's
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
but anyway,
Well, and if not dying, at the very least, like not being treated terribly well.
yeah, they're not being treated well. Want to go back to design because we've been on this thing for a minute, which I love. Big story, I thought, well, not a big story, but a minimal story yesterday in Friday's New York Times about a finance house in the UK whose original name, by the way, was Standard Life Aberdeen. A lot of people called it SLA at the time.
Okay.
And in 2021, this brand decided to, excuse me, this finance company decided to rename themselves to an acronym that is absolutely ridiculous, Ben. Here, I'm going to fire you the story so you can take a look at.
So it was SLA,
Yep,
and now the acronym is
it's the acronym for Aberdeen, and the letters
okay.
don't look great together. It's ABRDN. Now
Oh, I see.
they
Okay,
they
interesting.
are flipping that rebrand because they have just I think they've lost clientele. Now, they don't say that in the article in the Times, and certainly, they would never announce it, but they're changing it. They're changing it back so that people can read it. Because let's be
Right.
frank, like if I didn't tell you that was Aberdeen, do you think you would have said Aberdeen with the
Probably
acronym?
not. No, probably not Aberdeen. They've removed. So the way that the brand is now spelled is ABRDN, and it sounds like they are restoring it. And this story in the Times starts
200 year
with a
old company, by the way.
with how can brand stay cool, which is how can brand stay cool with no vowels.
Right.
Ironically, that first sentence actually looks like Welsh, which is sort of
It's funny.
funny.
You're right. You're right. I don't know if this is a
um,
Welsh company.
no, it's not. I mean, Scottish, right? So the that reminds me, Jeff, of I mean, obviously the vogue for dropping vowels has been and gone, except for one of the companies still waving the flag for it, which is of course Harmony Korine's Edgelord, your Miami neighbors, who just released their skate video Point Cloud
Oh,
yesterday.
really?
Yeah,
Nice
yeah,
call,
yeah. So
Ben.
I was having a whole bunch of text conversations about Point Cloud yesterday. So Edgelord is the digital Disney that Harmony Korine is trying to start or has started, with some partners, some of whom have some pretty curious entanglements, from what I understand, with
Legendary.
let's call it the well, with the Middle East. But in any case, they are an animation studio, an event company. They make skateboard decks. They make collectible baby figures.
Yeah,
They're
they make everything. They
I'm
make art,
I'm
Ben.
they
Art.
well, okay, sorry, just art. But in any case, they released this skateboard video yesterday, which is a kind of a fascinating combination of high tech music video and performance skateboard video. I as a skater, the skating is okay. Um,
Oh my
I
God,
think they
Ben,
made some.
did you just give a, oh my God.
Did I make a skateboard review? I did. Yeah,
Hold on. Why am I not on this newsletter? Let me get on this newsletter. We can talk about we can talk about Edgelord and Harmony in a minute
But in any
more.
case, they put out their skateboard video yesterday. They've got some great people on the team, like Sean Pablo, the you know famous former FA skater and Supreme team rider. Um, but the video is just as a document really kind of fascinating to watch. But it's funny because I was complaining about the skateboarding not being more exciting, and my buddy, a buddy whose name shall I'll leave him out of this so as not to impugn his reputation, but he was just like, Ben, what do you expect? It's a Harmony Korine thing. It's borderline and unwatchable. It's supposed to be. I was like, okay,
Oh man.
wow.
I don't know if I've shared this story with you, but I have no problem sharing. But before
Go for
we
it.
share my Harmony story, real quick, Edgelord is, these guys are actually doing great work. I didn't realize they did the Skims campaign, which I was familiar with.
Yeah.
Really quick, we have a connection at Maragoni to them through some of the professors.
Oh,
And
sure.
I
That
remember
makes sense.
walking into like, just like an open room and a kid was talking to a professor and she's like, hey, you know, the kid said to me, I said, where are you doing your internship? He's like, oh, I'm doing it with Harmony Korine. I was like, what? Where the hell did that come from? And I think, well, I don't want to kill anybody saying this, but I think he didn't understand maybe the way that I was understanding the power of what he had. You know,
Oh, right. Okay,
you know
gotcha.
what I
Sure.
mean? Like to me, I was like, dude, like how can you that's a yes. Like you have to go into that shop regardless of what happens, you know? So that's number one. It's awesome that he's down here. And quite frankly, the work is fun. I didn't know there was a skate video, but I'm happy to look at that. And real quick, I'll talk about skating in a second. Second, Spring Breakers, of course, pretty
Oh
maybe
yeah.
the most well-known of Harmony's films outside of like Gummo, or I guess there were more famous, but
Yeah, well, I mean, Spring Breakers is probably the one that commercially is best
yeah.
well known. I mean, Gummo is of legendary, but not a lot of people have seen it, I don't think.
Difficult movie to watch. But anyway, just this quick story. It was Easter weekend, and I had eaten a ton of edibles. And Limor and I at the time, Limor and I at the time had no kids, so we had gotten tickets to go see Spring Breakers at the Viking at like 9 p.m. on a Saturday. And man, I got to tell you, if you know the film Spring Breakers, the opening scene is a very frenetic movement through sexualized women's bodies near a pool, and all of the edibles I ate hit me in the middle of like this massive screen of a woman's breasts. And I remember like feel like I was getting sucked into it, and I tripped out. I had to leave the
Wow.
movie. Anyway, that's
You
my
had to leave
I
the movie?
swear that's I had to leave. And I didn't have
That
my
is
phone. I
amazing.
didn't have keys. It was cold. But anyway, I think Harmony, for those that are not familiar, dig into some of that work because
Yeah.
Ben, help me on this though. In today's generation, who would be the equivalent of a filmmaker? You know,
I mean,
tough.
I don't know that there is one. It's funny actually. There's a let me find it really quickly. There is there's a digital magazine called Felt Zine, Felt
I love that name.
Zine, Zine, that has covers these kind of digital cultures
Oh,
and
cool.
has a
Check it out.
series. So yeah, Felt Zine is really awesome. But they did a story about, let me see here. Uh, a digital film producer called Sakira Mods, Sakira Sakira Mods Mods, at Sakira Mods, who is a mysterious digital avatar obsessed with car modding, weaving together the raw pulse of
Oh fuck.
dreamcore, the breakneck energy of streetcar culture, and an undercurrent of debauchery to create hyper-induced, fast-paced digital environment. Anyway, they did a little video on, or a series of videos on Sakira Mods, and I would say that's in the zone. We don't know if Sakira Mods is 80 years old. I would suspect probably not, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. But
Yeah.
I don't know that. I mean, I'm just not sure who the kids are that are aspiring to Dogma 95. By the way, there's a Dogma 95 capsule on Criterion Collection right now. So if you want to see the greatest hits of the Dogma 95 filmmaking
That's
style,
cool.
you
Shout
can
out
go to
Criterion.
Criterion.
Hey, help me understand this. Janus Films,
Yeah,
Criterion.
I don't know. I don't know. Involved in some way. So Janus Films, Janus. God, I'm doing a lot of spelling today. Janus Films
Thank
is
God.
the film studio or distributor who has a lot of films that appear on Criterion, and probably is involved in Criterion in some way at a like sister company level. But I don't know what the
Do
relationship
you
is.
remember what your first film intro was to Criterion?
The first Criterion film that I
Mine was The Third Man, an Orson Welles flick.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't. I suspect mine was something probably more prosaic, like a special edition of a Spike Jones film or a
Oh,
Wes
right, right,
Anderson film.
right.
Like I came into it more through contemporary doors. Um,
Ben, I need your
what?
help on something though. 1 second. Hold on. Keep talking.
Okay. Well, so this was a funny thing for me, and apropos of filmmaking, I went to the zine release for the Pitchfork zine on Tuesday, um, and I went to see Jason Nacito, the photographer who was on stage for it because he shot the pictures in the zine, and um, I ran into Will Welch, the editor of GQ, who's
Mm-hmm.
like the corporate godfather of Pitchfork now. And Will and I were talking, and then he and Jason went backstage to get set up for the show. And this young woman, walked past carrying a digital camera that looked very much like the one that Campbell, my son, asked for Christmas,
Oh, cool.
and that my mother got him for Christmas. And so I stopped her and I was just like, "Hey, can I just look at the camera for a second?" And it was the same camera. And this young woman is just like, "Oh yeah, this is like this piece of nonsense camera that I bought from I got it in Japan, but you can get it on the internet now. It's like $50. It's really cheap. It's not very good, but it actually is kind of awesome for stuff like this. And I was telling her about Campbell being a film student and so on and so forth.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a fun. It was a nice conversation, and it was one that I then
I wish I had patience for film again, man.
I called, or Campbell actually called me, and I was telling him about it. But the funny thing, and I wrote about this week in Sick, but the thing that was interesting about that night was, aside from the zine launch and Pitchfork's like foray back into print media, was that PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, did a surprise protest in the middle of the Pitchfork zine launch.
Oh, come on.
And it was the second time that I've been to an event in the last 3 weeks where PETA protested. And
third time.
second time in 3 weeks. But which the other one was an Adidas. It was the launch of the Adidas A-Type line, their super premium line. And at that one, PETA was protesting the use of kangaroo leather, which Adidas doesn't use.
Fools.
And at the Pitchfork thing, they were protesting PETA's use, or Pitchfork's, or let's call it Condé Nast's use of fur, which of course Condé Nast makes magazines and digital content, not cool items.
Are they running
It was
out
just
of?
very bizarre, and it made me wonder who's like, who's running the strategy for this stuff and doing the fact checking at PETA, which is an organization that I admire and support the mission of, generally speaking, but like I need them to get things right. And then
Totally.
secondly, like, are we in a zone where it's trolling for trolling's sake, like YOLO protest? I mean, it worked. I'm talking about it. I've been talking about it all week, but like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, it's um Ben, another way of looking at it, do you think that you're coming to a point in your life where you don't run by the cuff anymore? And I think that we do live in this, and by the
What
way,
does
I
that
do
mean?
too. I mean, a lot of people will hear something, and I also
Oh,
think that,
just
yeah,
accept it off at face value, you mean?
everything gets accepted at face value. More importantly, everybody, I feel like there's a generation or a select number of people that are looking for a reason to cause cause a conversation, and
Sure.
in the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
end it never comes off right. For me, as an
Mhm.
example,
Mhm.
I think of uh the protesters who are protesting. Is it What were the protesters that were splashing paintings with tomato sauce? Were they protesting
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah, sure.
environment?
It's no, it's the climate change.
Right.
Um, I don't know the name of the organization
And
either,
I
but
think the one that sticks out to me was a flower show in England somewhere,
yeah.
where like where they're protesting, and just like, I don't know. I find a hard time with it. I got off camera for a quick second, Ben, because I want to ask you a question, and I know we're going long, but I want to ask you a question. I received a pretty cool, definitely a zine, which has, interestingly enough, a lot of original work, and then some stuff that at least the photographs don't look original to me. And it's called More Information. Ben, are you familiar with this?
No, but that looks cool.
It literally just arrived at my house, and I apologize if somebody reached out to me about it, but it's put together by somebody known as Is. They're out of um LA, and it's an interesting mix of, what I would say is current generation photography, as
Mhm.
well as a mix of stories about everything from like old war paintings to uh grocery store displays, which I always think is interesting. These look like very religious grocery store displays. For those that are looking, I'm holding up a page of what looks like mellow yellow. They don't call it mellow yellow. What is it called now? Sprite. Um,
Spray.
Sprite or whatever turned into crucifixes, as they say. And look, I'm sorry, this is actually kind of insane. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a young girl who's actually praying to the crucifixes of Coca Colas.
Right.
This,
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
fuck is this, man? Like, what is
That's
that?
interesting. So it's sort of like it's a brandlist art book.
It's a little bit brandless, so maybe I don't know who it is. One of my favorite video artists, guy named uh, I think it's Pesci or Peace, but Joe Pesci is an amazing visual artist.
It's
I
not
probably
for those who are not looking at the screen, it's not Joe Pesci from
no,
Goodfellas.
it's
This
not
is
Joe Pesci.
Joe
No,
Joe I think I would say it's probably Joe Pease,
I think it's
Pease.
Peas, and people may be familiar with his work where he does a ton of video overlays of probably the most famous is crosswalks, where
Oh, yeah, sure.
I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
this guy. Anyway, more information. Whoever sent it to me, thanks a lot. Give me a
Yeah, it's a cool
nothing beats
book.
a
Well, that and also, like, try to figure out how to make your situation more Googleable because
right. That's
it's
what
more information as is yields absolutely
I was
nothing
dying. I
useful.
was dying while you were talking, trying to find this. And
Right.
geez. Anyway, Ben, we've run through a good 35 minutes on a Saturday. Thanks for everyone for listening. Please, again, subscribe, follow us, do what you can to support the show. Ben and I love doing this, also
Yes,
because
indeed.
it's just fun to talk about magazines like More Information, or the fact that Patagonia is releasing a typeface. Because where else are you gonna hear
More
about that shit?
Also, and of course, shout out to More or Less magazine and to, all of
The
the other contributors.
the
Nick Barrett, Nick
Nick Barrett,
Catstrubs.
the potter, this beautiful potter.
That's a
And that's
glass
it.
piece, Jeff, isn't it?
Oh, sorry. One more time.
Okay, fine. If we just,
It is glass.
beautiful. All right, Jeff,
Enjoy
I'll
your
talk to you
weekend,
again
Ben.
soon. All right, you
See you,
too.
everyone.
Later.
That was
Oh,
fun.
all right.